Okay, welcome to day 3 of Digital Democracy on 94.7 The Pulse, and we've made our way through to the halfway point, which is absolutely wonderful. Throughout this week, we're conducting a total of 9 forums, and you'll have the opportunity to meet the people that are running in your area to help you make an informed choice on election day. And in the past, we've run these forums in person, and we've had live studio audiences, and we've been on location in some cases. Unfortunately, COVID-19 means it's a very different reality. This time around, we've got all of our candidates attending remotely. You can still have your say. Just go to the Pulse website if you'd like to submit a question for the candidates. The website's pulse.com/council elections forum, all one word. Forum number 5 of our 9 forums is for Kardinia ward. Kardinia is 119 square kilometres. It goes from the Barwon River in the north down to Warren Ponds and Armstrong Creek, includes places like Highton and Belmont. And the last election in Kardinia ward saw about 49,000 voters. Kardinia ward will elect 3 councillors, and I'm pleased to say that here to answer your questions today, we have in ballot paper order Jack Williams, Ron Nelson, Pat Manane, Atamjit Singh, Belinda Maloney, Anthony Hamilton-Smith, Bruce Harwood, Andrew Alexander, Mark Brogner, and Michael Stangel. What we will do with...
missed me.
What's that?
I think you've missed me on the list.
For some reason, you're not coming up on the list. All right, bear with me. We will have a look at it. So Andy Richards is here as well. Thank you for pointing that out, Andy. The candidates will get a 2-minute opening statement followed by 2 minutes to answer the questions that we put forward, and then 2-minute closing statements. And each time around, the question speaking order will be chosen by our computer. So I'm not sure why we don't have Andy Richards there, but we'll move to our opening statements now, 2 minutes for each candidate, and chosen first by our computer is Andrew Alexander. Andrew, if you'd like to go ahead. You'll just need to unmute yourself. I think he's just waiting to come in again. All right, we'll move on to the next person, Pat Manane.
Good afternoon, everybody. Pat Manane here. I've lived in the Kardinia ward for the last 45 years, and I've worked in Geelong for over 40 years. And sort of running the Bendigo Bank during that time, I actually established 11 community companies across the region, so it gave me a great connection to community. In addition to that, the role sort of had me involved in corporate Geelong, so as an elected councillor for over the past 3 years, I've used that combination of community connection and corporate experience to provide pretty balanced and informed approach to all decision-making matters that have come before council in the chamber, and that they are many and varied, as you would imagine. So it's been to my advantage to have had that broad experience. Added to this, I don't have any political affiliations, or I don't have any alliances. So I've been free to be able to provide a pretty independent view on every matter, which I think is enormously important. I've spent a lot of time dealing with what I call the community touch issues, and which have been raised with me by both residents, be they individuals or by organisations. But I've also spent a lot of time dealing with the macro issues that challenge our city. Issues like homelessness and social housing, emergency food relief, and also those other areas of a broader spectrum, like the alternative transport options and local roads such as Barwon Heads, duplication of Barwon Heads, etc. It's been 3 very busy years, and it's been 3 very enjoyable years, which I'm sure all councillors would agree once they have the opportunity. And a lot has been achieved in that short time.
And I'm sorry, that's your plenty of opportunities to come back in. Andrew Alexander, I think you might be there with us now. Is that right? You'll need to unmute yourself.
Yep. I'll unmute. Thank you, Mitchell. Yes, I am here.
Go ahead, your 2-minute opening statement.
Well, I'm a first-time candidate, and I'm running for Kardinia ward to give the electors the opportunity to consider someone else. At least two of the incumbents have been there for quite some years. Pat clearly has not been there for that long. And so I think the quality of the decision making can improve with different candidates getting on board council. So my candidature is about giving people that chance to consider someone new. In that regard, I've got a very diverse set of skills that I can bring to the task from my educational background, but also my work as a commercial lawyer. I understand how businesses work. I know how governance needs to be undertaken. I know how policies need to be formed and implemented through my master's degree in public policy and management. I know how these things work, and yes, unlike Pat and maybe a couple of other candidates, I do have a political affiliation. I've always thought that if you want to make a difference in politics and in public life, you've got to at least choose a political party that reflects your aspirations for Australia. And the Labor Party certainly does that for me. Labor's been responsible for some amazing social initiatives that have made our country way better than it would have been had they not done that. And many of the people on the panel would agree. So I'm very proud to have political affiliations, but that's not going to mean that I don't bring an independent view on matters. I'm clearly someone who has integrity. I advise people from a range of political backgrounds about a whole range of matters, and I'll be continuing to do that in the same manner on council.
Thank you very much. Ron Nelson is listed next.
Thank you, Mitchell, and thank you for the opportunity to speak on your program. As one of the younger councillors on council, I'm certainly not. I've been there for a few years, but I'm one of the younger councillors on the panel. So I've been a councillor for about 8 years. This is my second time I'm seeking re-election. I've delivered for our community over the last 3 years since being re-elected. And I've certainly kept my promises. I've saved libraries. I was the only councillor or candidate at the time to save libraries and will continue to do so. I became the chair of the library board and have since opened a library and planning is underway for Armstrong Creek Library, already up and running that planning already. I've delivered on hard rubbish to stop illegal dumping, which is a real issue in Armstrong Creek and those back roads there. It's a real problem. So there's really no need to dump hard rubbish because I've certainly, and my fellow councillors have delivered on hard rubbish. I've delivered on school crossings, especially in Armstrong Creek where there aren't as many as there should be. I've delivered on sporting and community infrastructure. I've stood with my community on local planning issues. I'll always stand with my community. Yes, I'm a member of the Liberal Party, but I'm not, unlike other candidates, I'm not funded or supported by any political party. So I'm running this campaign self-funded, like Pat. I'm a grassroots community member. I've delivered playgrounds for our community, for our kids. And I've just recently put in, the budget managed to convince my fellow councillors to put in $1 million to plant 1 million trees across the municipality for a better and greener canopy across the municipality. I've also supported free parking in the CBD, especially now during these COVID times. We really need to support our frontline workers. I'm a frontline worker myself. I work with people with disability every day. I don't go into the CBD, obviously, because of COVID. But,
Ron, thank you. That's your 2 minutes. But again, plenty of opportunities to come back in. Belinda Maloney is listed next.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Mitchell, for having me. Firstly, I want to pay respect to my elders, the First Nation people, elders past, present and emerging. I think that the First Nations people of the Wadawurrung land were absolutely amazing caretakers of the environment, and their connection to our land and waters and culture was just awesome. I think over the last 20 odd years, we've seen so much environmental degradation. It's caused a lot of natural catastrophic events, and a lot of those are directly attributed to climate change and our pretty ineffective custodianship of nature. I know it's our poor management of environmental issues happens on a global scale, but really now it's time to act locally, especially in our own backyards. But they're ever shrinking thanks to poor town planning and greedy developers, as we've seen. I think as a key growth pocket, Kardinia is really feeling the brunt of these effects. And as a concerned resident, I'm running for council as a plea to Geelong residents. I want everyone to fire up and have a look at what's happening in your local surrounds, and also see what's going on behind the veil within local politics, which is interesting so far. I'm pretty disappointed with a few of the decisions council have had recently, especially with their blatant disregard for the environment and the people of Geelong, pandering to big business polluters, allocating funds to pet projects, the green spine decision, lack of clear targets of their sustainability framework, and also small amounts of funding, lacking the initiatives for community outreach programs. I think that all of those things have really compelled me to run Mitchell. And in the past, I've shaped a lot of massive process and cultural changes in organisations. And I know it's not an easy task, especially when we're recovering from something like COVID and lockdown. I've got a pretty broad knowledge base and also strategic planning capabilities and practice. So I think that helps me to see the bigger picture. And I think that's what council needs right now. But, it's pretty easy for me to complain and sit here and talk about this, but I really want to rally the people of Geelong with their conscience. I think COVID and lockdowns have shown us.
Thanks, Belinda. That's your 2 minutes. We'll go to Michael Stengel now.
Thanks.
Hey guys, how are you all? I'm good, I hope.
Fantastic.
That's good. Yeah, I'm muted. First of all, I think it's important for everybody to get to know who we are. First of all, my name's Michael Stangel, and I come from a very different background than everybody else that's, I think, running this year. I come from the entertainment industry. I don't know how many entertainers have run for council before, but the things that are important to me is, one thing that is different is I don't have a whole heap of notes that I'm going to read from. Everything that I do is from the heart. And I think the most important thing from what I've found so far running for council is that there's a lot of people that just want that real interaction. They want to look into your eyes and they want to know that you really care about what they're saying to you. And I do really care. I was born in Geelong, in Holy Cross Hospital. I learned to walk in Belmont. I went to Belmont High School. I went to every single disco that was going back in the 80s. So I've got a real affiliation. I've traveled all over the world with my career and always called Geelong home. I really, really enjoy coming back to all the things it has to offer. I do think that council has been doing a pretty good job so far, but there's always room for improvement. And I want to be able to bring some voice to council that comes from a different perspective. I think it's really important to have personality, to get the people invested in what we're doing. They have to be interested. And I want to make council something that isn't coming from a robotic speak. I want to make it from the heart and real. Am I going to be the smartest person on council? Maybe not, but I definitely will have the most heart, and I really care. If somebody comes to me with a problem, I'm going to really try and do the best I can to solve that problem for them. And if I can't, bring it to council, see what we can do, have the bureaucrats look at it, and then try and debate as best I can to try and get the points across from people. I think that's my 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. We'll go to Atamjit Singh. You'll just see, yep.
Yep. Good afternoon, Mitchell, listeners, and my fellow candidates from Kardinia ward. Just a brief, myself, I moved to Geelong in 2006, and I'm an IT graduate. And since I moved in Geelong, this city has provided me a lot of opportunities, and I'll take every opportunity to give it back to the community. I am actively involved with the community, from last 10 years. I have been involved and a strong supporter of the community events like Paco Festa and Geelong Humanity Walk. Since the COVID pandemic has started, I am the part of the initiative taken by Indian and Sikh community of Geelong to provide meals and food boxes to our vulnerable community members. And I'm proud to say that we have delivered around 10,000 meals till date, and we're still continuing. And professionally, I'm a director of an education consultancy company. So I work very closely with the young students, and I understand the role of education in the growth of our community. And as an experienced community worker, I understand the grassroots issues our community is facing. And my reason for running for this council election is to give a progressive, decisive, and a diverse vision to our beautiful city. My priority is to be address the grassroots issues which are affecting day-to-day activities of our community members, like improvement in the road infrastructure, footpaths, better and modern sports facilities, safe recreation facilities and parks. I support libraries in growth areas and continuous upgrade for the existing libraries. I'll advocate for the sustainable development. Thanks, Mitchell.
Thank you very much. And up next, Bruce Harwood.
Thank you. Welcome all. And thank you, Mitchell, for this opportunity. Bruce Harwood. I've been on council for some time. I was born, raised and educated in Geelong. I know Geelong intimately. I've spent most of my life here. And I know Kardinia ward issues intimately as well. I know the region extremely well. I've raised my family in Kardinia ward. Our kids went to local schools, Belmont Primary, Montpellier Primary, over to Oberon High School and beyond. I'm heavily involved in the community. I've been heavily involved in the community prior to going on council. I was on the Belmont Primary School Council. I've been involved in the local Geelong Amateur Football Netball Club. I've been involved over at the South Barwon Football Netball Club and a number of other community organisations. I've been heavily involved in local environmental groups through the Kardinia ward. And I do bring a lot of experience to the role. I've been mayor and deputy mayor on occasions and have covered an enormous amount of issues in recent years through Kardinia ward. And we've seen enormous change in Geelong. Probably the biggest change has been the demand for people to live here. So our population growth has been unprecedented, and the issues that go with that and keeping up with the infrastructure required that we are getting on top of. I'm independent. I don't have any political allegiance. I've seen what politics does at local government level, and it's not always where you want to be. So I've always remained independent, so I can listen to all sides and all discussions and make independent decisions. I think in my previous life, I was a policeman for many years, mainly as a detective in homicide, drugs, major crime. But in more recent times, I've been involved in business, and those businesses have been environmentally based, and I continue those today. I have a great passion for Kardinia ward, and that will continue. Because I've been here for a long time, doesn't mean I don't wish to stay, but I am happy to be judged by the community, and I'll continue to work as hard as I possibly can on every issue that comes before me. So I give that commitment to the people of Kardinia ward and to Geelong.
Thanks, Bruce. And Mark Brunga. Mark, are you there?
Yes, I am. Just keyboard didn't want to respond. Thank you, Mitchell, for the opportunity, and also good morning to all the listeners out there, all the viewers online, and to my fellow candidates. It's very simple. If you cut Mark Brunga in half, you'd see blue and white hoops. It's that simple. Born in Geelong, bred in Geelong, lived all my life in Geelong. Been involved for the last 25 years with local basketball through the Geelong Supercats as their courtside announcer. I filled board positions at Basketball Geelong. I've also been involved in local cricket through the media and got to know many of the clubs around the region, and also recently just finished a 2-year stint on the City of Greater Geelong's Heritage Advisory Committee. I feel that I have a really good sense of what Geelong wants and what Geelong needs. I'm a firm believer in listening to the people. The people are the ones that put us there, so therefore they're the ones we need to listen to. And I really think that the City of Greater Geelong over the last few years has lost touch with that. I'm not associated with big business. I'm not associated with political parties or anything like that. All I am is a Geelong person who wants to see the best for Geelong and see it grow and develop into a modern and exciting city. I've already mentioned a few things that I'd like to look at in terms of roads, rates, rubbish, which are the basic needs of a council. The roads in our region are deplorable and need action. I also want to push for an indoor purpose-built sporting facility here in Kardinia ward to support indoor sports. Also like to see the overturn of the decision of the previous council in terms of the redevelopment of High Street, which is completely overkill and not what the people of Geelong actually want. So what people of Geelong are going to get from me is an independent voice who will stand up. I am a grassroots person. I understand grassroots issues, and I am there to be your representative and your voice in City Hall. Thank you.
Mark, thank you very much. Anthony Hamilton-Smith.
So let's take myself off mute. I'd like to acknowledge that this forum is taking place on the stolen lands and waterways of the Wadawurrung people of the Kulin Nation. We pay our respects to their elders past and present. The land we are on always was and always will be Aboriginal land. So I live in Highton with my wife and 2 young children. I'm self-employed and run a small Geelong-based design practice specialising in sustainable hospitality and retail design. Alongside my own business, I've worked extensively in film and television in the capacity as a designer and set builder. As a Geelong resident with a young family, I believe in education and quality childcare equity, that all children should have the equal opportunity to grow, learn and thrive regardless of their financial background. This is the foundation of a strong community, promoting a nurturing, inclusive and diverse Geelong, where everyone belongs. As a councillor and community representative, I want to be the everyday person who makes a difference to ordinary people in our electorate. A successful, prosperous community needn't come at the expense of the natural environment either. To be able to represent my community and make a difference would be an honour. I look forward to making connections and advocating for positive change. I would want to push for creating secure, meaningful work in sustainable local industry. We have existing infrastructure that will lend itself to excellent opportunities for our community. And this is an initiative that requires innovation, education, employment to benefit Greater Geelong into the future. As a Greens candidate, I will give a voice to health, employment, education, action on climate change, sustainability, active transport and environment and diverse communities in Kardinia.
Thank you very much. And second last, because we're still going to go to Andy Richards. Don't worry, Andy, I haven't forgotten you. Jack Williams.
G'day. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge that I work and live.
Oh, just not, the sound quality is just not very good there, Jack. Are you able to try a different microphone or something?
No, could do.
No, I'm just not hearing you, sorry. Maybe we'll just try Andy Richards now. Andy, are you there?
Yeah, here, Mitchell.
Yep, you're coming through. Okay, so Jack, maybe just have a look at your microphone or try something different. Sorry about that. Andy Richards, go ahead.
Thanks, Mitchell, and thanks, listeners, and thanks to my fellow candidates. Look, I think by now the voters in Kardinia Ward have got a pretty clear idea about who Andy Richards is. I was a 2-term councillor from 2008 to 2016, chair of the Library Corporation for 4 or 5 years, chair of Barwon Regional Waste for the same amount of time, sat on the Art Gallery Committee and participated fully in council life. So I think it's better to probably get onto the issues that matter at this election. And look, I've got to say it up front, what's happened in Kardinia Ward over the last 3 years? Well, a bit, but this council seems far too consumed with the Geelong CBD, which is a long way from the suburbs and the streets of Kardinia Ward. There's not enough being done in the suburbs, and that doesn't just go for Kardinia. I get the same feedback all over suburban Geelong. This council is very CBD focused, and yet again, there's more media coverage this week of more schemes to change the CBD around. Many residents in Kardinia Ward don't go near the CBD for a range of reasons. They're more concerned about what happens at the Grovedale shops, at the Armstrong Creek shops, at the Highton shops, and being able to get a park there, being able to access the services there. They're more, people in Belmont are probably far more concerned about what happens in Belmont than what happens in the CBD. Now, I guess it's fair to ask, has the current council done a good job? Because if they have, why would I be standing? I'd rather see them continue to do their good work. And I think it's fair to say that with the voting bloc, the way it is, and the other side proving somewhat ineffective in being able to break that up, it's
Andy,
time
that's
to get
your 2 minutes. I'm sorry. Jack Williams, are we going to have any luck with you this time around?
How's that sounding, Mitchell?
Yes, much better. Go ahead.
Thanks, Mitchell. Thanks to all our candidates. Look, first of all, I'd like to acknowledge that I work and live on the traditional lands of the Wadawurrung people, and I honour and pay my respects to their elders, past and present. I live in Mount Dunedin, out in the new growth area in Armstrong Creek, and I understand the needs of this area. And I currently work at the Marshall Railway Station. I'm a station master there, and I engage with the community on a daily basis, learning about their ideas and concerns, as well as their interest towards the Kardinia community, as well as Geelong as a whole. I'm running in this election as a young candidate. It's very obvious that I'm quite young. I'm 22 years old. The reason I decided to put my hand up at the start was because there's a fact that really got to me, and it is that 1.8% of politicians in Australia are under 35 and 45% of Australia's population is under 35. That doesn't sound like equal representation to me. And I didn't see anyone else around me really putting their hands up to say, look, I'm here to represent young people. I'm here for young people. So I'm going to be that person. I want to represent the people that aren't traditionally listened to, the people that don't feel listened to. And I want to introduce inclusiveness and diversification into that council. Whether that be cultural diversification, sexual identity, I am gay, and this is something that really, really gets to me, that people don't feel like they can speak to anyone. People living with disabilities, I would like to feel like they have someone to speak to if they need to. I'm going forward with three main things. It's youth, inclusion, and sustainability, making the youth, developing them better in our community, including everyone so they're able to participate, and making sure that Geelong is sustainable for the future, economically, socially, and culturally.
Jack, thank you very much for that. I'm glad that we got to hear you in the end. I'm just going to try and reboot our system here just so that we can make sure that Andy is in the shuffle for future questions. It seems like we're on the right track now. We've got Andy there now, which is great. All right, what we're going to do is move on to our first question, which has come through from... What's that, sorry?
Jen Gamble's also in
Jen Gamble was an apology for this forum, unfortunately. She's the only candidate that couldn't make it. But yes, you're right. She's not in the list because she was an apology. We've received a number of questions that have come through to us today about behavior and a number of candidates and their behavior over the years. And I thought, rather than sitting down for an hour to talk about signs or behavior or what's happened, we will just give the candidates all one opportunity for 2 minutes to talk about any allegations that might have been made, their opportunity to tell their side of the story. Most specifically, the questions we've received have been about Ron Nelson. The allegations were in the Geelong Advertiser. But we also received a couple of questions about Andy Richards and historical reports of bullying in the previous council. So this is your opportunity as a candidate to talk about that for 2 minutes before we actually move on to the issues. And we've run the shuffle. Each candidate will get the opportunity, but if you don't want to speak on this subject, we'll just move to the next person. So Mark, you're listed first.
Thanks very much, Mitchell. My statement on this topic is very straightforward. I don't think the people of the people of Kardinia are quite frankly interested in the shenanigans and the goings on of what's been going on over the last few days. They're more interested, and I am more interested in talking about what they need, what they want, and what they deserve from their city council. I believe that that is more important than who did what to whose sign, and that's all I'm interested in talking about. I don't think there's any more to say on the subject for me. I have no interest in who did what to who and what the story is. I'm more interested in talking to the people of Kardinia for what they want and what they need. Thanks, Mitchell.
Thanks, Mark. Atamjid?
Yeah, hi, Mitchell. As far as these issues are concerned, I agree that, this forum should be, more focused on the issues around the community, which needs to be addressed. But definitely, during this COVID, the campaign for, especially for the first timers were pretty tough. And as I told and said in the previous interview with you as well, that incumbents, they obviously have a huge advantage in this situation. But as my signs were removed from Mount Dunedin and from the different sources, I got the information that some of the sitting sort of candidate was behind those sort of things. But definitely, probably, I believe in that, everyone should have a fair go. And in this civilized sort of, society where we live, everyone should be very respectful to each other. And it's not gives a good image to the general public, as far as the politicians are concerned. So my view is, if there is any behavior which needs to be condemned, we should do it. Thanks, Mitchell.
Thank you. Pat? Pat, you'll just need to unmute yourself if you're there.
I am. Look, I'll be very quick because I think there's a lot more important things to talk about.
Thank you.
With respect to the signs, a pretty unfortunate situation, but again, I'd make the point that there are no room for politics in local government. So let's hope we don't see any more of that. And with respect to the matters of past councillors being sacked, and I could only say that that should be put back into the past. For example, I know that I've worked with several councillors this year who were part of previous sacked council. A good example is Mayor Bruce Harwood, who did an amazing job as the mayor of this last council for the first 2 years. I didn't know Bruce prior to getting on, but having worked with him during that period, he did a marvellous job. So I think everybody deserves a second chance, and you judge people as you find them.
Thanks, Pat. Belinda?
Well, I think that the news was a bit shocking to me. I think that the idea of bullying really discourages people like myself, or women in general, from running for council. I mean, that's one of the many detractors for doing that. And I agree with Pat. I think that politics doesn't belong in local council. I also think that I've seen, especially in the Geelong Advertiser, the historical culture of bullying within the city of Greater Geelong Council, and I don't think that that belongs anywhere. I've been the victim of bullying, I've been a whistleblower in the past, and I don't stand for it. I frankly think it's disgusting behaviour, and I think we need to either grow up and move on, or really try and find a different way or a different system in order to ensure this doesn't happen again. That's my piece. Thanks.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you. Look, I just don't engage in it. There are processes in place when these issues occur, and unfortunately, whether it's local politics or beyond, there's a lot of passion, there's a lot of emotion, and sometimes they do get carried away. People do get highly strung and stressed during these times. I'm sure everyone who's with us today is feeling the pinch on different occasions of a political campaign, even at a local level. So I guess all I say is that you have to roll with the punches sometimes. There's a lot of give and take, and sometimes you need to keep an open mind, but and you need to park sometimes when you get a bit upset. But there are processes to follow if you wish to make complaints. You can go through the monitor or through state government. There are processes there if you feel the need, but I think sometimes it's really a matter of sitting back and looking at what's occurred and judging it accordingly. If it's of a minor nature, let it go. We've got bigger things to worry about, and much more greater things to achieve for our community than internal squabbling just amongst ourselves. It won't achieve anything. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Alexander?
Thanks, Mitchell. Yeah, look, I didn't know what to think when I saw the reports in the newspaper. I was disappointed. I think it reflects badly on all of us, because we're all running to be people who we say to the public are worthy of a vote, and to represent their interests and to listen to what they want and to achieve what we think is in the best interest of everyone in the electorate. And I suppose reacting or responding to a young candidate's indiscretion in the manner that I suppose was done seemed a little bit unprofessional, to say the least. And as Bruce said, if you've got an issue, there are processes that you can go through. But to do it to a second candidate too, which just didn't seem again reasonable. When a simple picking up of a telephone could have at least put those people in the right, or given them the right information to be able to then do the right thing. I think that's the best way to go about most things. I was a school teacher for a long time, and when someone misbehaves, you don't sort of throw it in their face. You go up to them and explain to them what they've done wrong and give them an opportunity to fix it. I just think it's immature, and it would have been better that maybe that was done instead of what was done. And hopefully that's the last of that we see from that person, particularly get re-elected again, you've got to be a model citizen when you take up positions such as this one. And I'd like to think that, again, a mistake was made. And
thanks, Andrew. That's your 2 minutes. Ron Nelson.
Yeah, thanks, Mitchell. Yeah, I guess it was disappointing what happened. I contacted a colleague to contact the candidate, and they never returned the call. So I rang the police. They said return the sign, so I returned the sign. I said how disappointed I was. You know, we've all done things that you know, in hindsight, should I've visited Jack? I know Jack. I've door knocked Jack, and we had a really good conversation. So I didn't think it was such an issue. It was a Saturday afternoon at 5:30. I just expressed my disappointment. That was about it. Would I do it again? Probably not. But I think, as most candidates have said, there's more important things than signs. You know, most candidates that are sitting here today have broken council rules and put more than one sign on a property. And, you know, as Bruce said, you just got to let stuff go. So I haven't bothered anymore. It's what's the point? People are going to put signs where they're not supposed to put them, because they know that by the time a complaint's made and it goes around and around in circles and council gets notified and then the officers come over, it's too late. So, you know, is it cheating? Yeah, probably is. Is it worth worrying about? I don't think so. I think we've got more things to worry about, and certainly during these COVID times, we've got more important things to discuss. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Michael.
Hey, everybody. Oh.
Yep, you're right. Go ahead.
I think I'm here. Look, what I'd say on the matter is that everybody's saying it's not important. So if it's not important, then why has the media gone with it? We all say there's bigger things to worry about, but for me, the big thing to worry about is a human condition and why did it happen? We're all under pressure at the moment. Nobody's mentioned COVID yet. Nobody's mentioned that sometimes people are pushed to do things they wouldn't ordinarily do. What I want to say is a lot of the comments about these candidates have been disgusting on both sides. And that form of bullying, that online bullying, has to stop. Yes, it's the wrong thing to do. There would be better processes to complain about it and better processes to deal with it. But, you know, let's not pretend things don't happen. Let's deal with them as they happen, talk honestly to people, because that's what people want. They want us to pretend what they're interested in. They want us to listen to what they're interested in. And according to social media and the papers, that's what people are interested in. That's all I have to say.
Thanks, Michael. Andy Richards?
Yeah, thanks, Mitchell. Look, there may be some candidates in Kardinia Ward who have outstanding allegations against them of bullying and so forth, but I'm not one of them. I have followed the sign brouhaha from afar. I've only got a few signs up in Kardinia Ward, and they only went up on Sunday after this issue, I suppose, broke. So I'm not really across it. But what I do know is that I see in some of the sitting councillors a real desire to stay on council. And I just pose the question, is that cutting across their logic and their rationality in how they conduct the campaign? You know, it's all very well to want to do good for the city, all right? You can also hang around too long, and you've also got to know when to go and when to possibly spend some time on the bench. And after the council got sacked in 2016, I thought it was important that I looked after my own personal situation and my work situation, and I've worked sort of tirelessly to get ahead in the construction game over the last few years. And I had a deep think about whether I'd want to come back in council and whether I could make a contribution. And what it came down to essentially was the fact that I think that, you know, the Southern Ward in Geelong, Kardinia, has stalled, and it needs a strong advocate that represents it rather than keeps representing the CBD. As for governance issues and how we treat people, there's a golden rule: do unto others as you would have wish done to you. And I think we could all, take something out of that, no matter what religion, or even if we're not religious. That's probably my guiding sort of point. Thanks.
Thanks, Sandy. Anthony Hamilton-Smith.
Sure. The whole episode is pretty disappointing, and our kids still ask where that scary man is every time they hear a knock on the door. So that's problematic to some extent. But really, I think the media's blown it up, and it's a bit of storm in a teacup, and it's also probably the reason why people hate politicians. So I think we need to put this behind us and all work together and work forward to make Geelong a better place. And I'm sure the residents of Geelong that are going to be voting will agree on that. And it's, yeah, I think it was a bit needless, and we don't really want to see any more of it.
Thank you. Jack Williams.
Yeah, g'day, Mitchell. Look, I was going to refrain from commenting on this and just saying, look, it's all done and dusted, and let's get on and talk about Geelong's issues. But considering everyone's having a comment on this, I may as well have my final say as the person who is pretty much at the centre of all of this. Look, first of all, just the last few days has just been full of victim blaming. You know, anything that I've done is, you know, nothing I knew that I was doing wrong. And, there's been some lies going around in the paper. You know, I know Councillor Nelson said that his wife witnessed the interaction with him and I on Saturday afternoon. His wife wasn't there at all. And coming around and speaking and having a chat to me about it calmly definitely did not happen. I went and spoke to the police. The police also told me that Councillor Nelson actually called them to tell them that he was bringing the sign to my house and that they didn't advise him to do it at all. And he was just doing it on his own accord. And I just want to set that record straight before we continue any further. And that's my final say on the matter. Just no more victim blaming. And, Michael Stangel said earlier that there's lots going around on the internet, to both candidates. It's not nice to be at the end of that. It is online bullying, and bullying is an issue that we're all aware of now. And I just want to change that within council. There shouldn't be any bullying at all. We're all here to do something for the community. We all want to stand up and listen for the community.
Thanks, Jack. Look, we'll move on for that, but if anyone wants to say anything else, you've got your closing statements to do that. If we could keep the next question answers short, because we're going to be very pushed for time, unfortunately. We are committed on this station to trying to make sure that every candidate has their say. The next question's about Grovedale, and this person online says, Grovedale is a suburb that seems to have been left behind. It was designed for motor cars and without regard to pedestrians. It has a very poor footpath network. Access for children, the disabled and the elderly around the neighbourhood is very difficult. Established trees have thick roots and a variety of surfaces on nature strips make for difficult journeys. There's no footpath on the southern section of Coolabah Drive, which is the main route the pedestrians would take to Coolabah Park from the main Hayes Road. Coolabah be the logical link between Hayes Road and the Warn Ponds Creek. However, there is no path, just dead ends. A local disabled resident with an electric wheelchair is forced to use the road. This is dangerous. Can we have footpaths in Grovedale and particularly in Coolabah Drive, please? The current residents are suffering because of bad planning decisions in the 1970s. Enlisted first is Belinda Maloney.
Thanks for that. I think that's a really incredible question. I've actually been on Coolabah Drive myself recently during the campaign, and I agree with that. I think the accessibility issues, not only within Grovedale, but also around Belmont as well, with the large mature trees impinging on the footpaths, is a massive issue that happens especially with established suburbs. And I think that there's an absolute need to think about the accessibility for people who are disabled, who have perhaps issues trying to raise their feet above concrete that is mismatched. I've seen that a lot throughout Belmont and Grovedale, and I'd like to see it happen, but I think that the budgets are perhaps allocated differently to those kind of resolutions. So I'm hoping to see that within the next perhaps few months, but the 2020 to 21 budget doesn't really have much in its capacity because we're already going into deficit quite substantially. So I think we need to really relook at resource allocation for things like footpaths.
Thank you. Mark Brogner?
Yes, Mitchell, I think there has been a fair bit of neglect of the older suburbs in Kardinia Ward, such as Belmont, Grovedale and Highton. Over the years, we've seen the budget for services like footpaths and roads and trees and maintenance drop off consistently. To the detriment of residents. I've walked to quite a few of those footpaths in that area, and I've almost come a cropper myself several times with uneven footpaths or roots from trees sticking out. all suburban streets should have footpaths in this day and age. And the fact that places like Coolabah Drive that have been there for many, many years still don't have footpaths is a bit of an indictment on the city. And the problem is that we're all scampering to, quite rightly, get facilities and infrastructure in place for the growing Armstrongs Creek area, but it shouldn't be at the compromise of the other existing suburbs. And we really need, as a council, to really investigate budgets to make sure that we can get these sorts of things rectified for our residents and address their concerns.
Thank you. Andy Richards.
Yeah, thanks, Mitchell. Look, the bottom line is that southern Geelong, and especially the southern end of Kardinia ward, is not getting the representation that it used to get when there were individual wards. Kardinia ward doesn't stop at, the Belmont post office. It doesn't stop at Barrabill Road. There's a lot more to Kardinia ward, all the way to the end of Armstrong Creek and Mount Dunedin. And, the person who's written that question is obviously picking up the same sort of vibe that I'm picking up when I'm campaigning in Grovedale and Warren Ponds. They haven't seen councillors down there for a long period of time. They don't see them at their local sports club. They don't see them, down at the shops. And therefore, councillors are not attending to the actual needs of the community in Grovedale, in Warren Ponds. I think it's fair to say that Grovedale is probably the least walkable suburb in Geelong, having been designed sometime in the 80s and built sometime in the 90s and the 2000s. It needs a bunch of infrastructure, to make it a better place to live. If this election doesn't produce some councillors in Kardinia ward that care about Grovedale and care about Warren Ponds, it'll just be the status quo. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Bruce Harwood.
Thank you. Look, the Coolabah area is well documented, and a number of issues have been addressed around there. Interestingly enough, when it was constructed, people didn't want nature strips or footpaths on their nature strips back in those days. And we have another number of areas in Geelong. Ocean Grove is a good example as well. So they do exist. There's a lot of catch-up and infrastructure for the region, and that's been acknowledged and worked on. There's been an enormous amount of money allocated towards our infrastructure, roads and footpaths in particular. It's a really difficult one. There's currently a special rate and charge that goes with footpath construction that we have been looking at trying to actually remove. So remove that cost to the resident for footpaths to be built. But again, that cost goes back onto the council, back to the general community. So it's a difficult discussion that is taking place now. As I say, there's a number of issues that council are facing at the moment, in particular with the COVID issue and the financial implications of that. So the next 4 years will be critical in relation to how we spend our money, how we raise our money, how we spend our money. Footpaths is always one of those topics that is high on the list, as are potholes in roads, as are parks and gardens. The conversation is endless. And I can assure everybody that in recent times, the councillor group has been very vigilant in addressing these issues, and will continue to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron Nelson.
Thank you, Mitchell. Yeah, as Bruce quite rightly said, we've been really playing catch up with previous councils that where developers didn't put footpaths in. I live in Highton, and there's no footpath out the front of my place, so it is quite dangerous. As I said before, I'm a frontline worker. I work with people with disabilities, so I hear every day the problems with accessibility. So I certainly, when I was a previous councillor in Deakin Ward, I fought for footpaths and constantly got footpaths and footpaths and footpaths. But the problem is that they're part of a special rate and charge scheme. So that means that the resident has to pay for some of that footpath. And if the majority of residents don't want it, they don't get it. So it's a real issue in Highton and certainly Grovedale. Grovedale, that Coolabah Drive, correct me if I'm wrong, Pat, when it gets to you, is actually on the list of special rate and charge to be built. So Coolabah Drive will be built. As we all know, that's in Grovedale, where Mr. Richards was for 8 years. So if anyone's to blame for no footpaths down there, Andy, it's probably you. You were there for 8 years. So, but what I would say is, I think we need to abolish the special rate and charge scheme and just build footpaths. we need more footpaths to make our areas more accessible for all people, not just people that can drive cars, people that don't drive cars, and people that have mobility issues. So that's what I'll be campaigning for, is to abolish the special rate and charge scheme, which we only get $600,000 out of the residents from that. And I would advocate for an extra $2 million to get footpaths built because, as I said, being a frontline worker, it's really important.
Thank you. Jack Williams.
Yeah, look, it's a fantastic question. It brings up a few other questions as well. You know, the Grovedale area was built in the 70s, and there aren't heaps of footpaths around there. And it is important that we have footpaths for accessibility for all our residents. But I want to see more consultation with people who have a disability and have designs that suit people, that enable them to participate in their community. Accessible pathways for people who are older and have a disability, accessible bus shelters, other accessible parks, sensory parks, and council designs are critical to ensuring inclusion, genuine inclusion in the Kardinia ward. And I want to see a plan in which we communicate widely and ensure our residents feel listened to in any pre-design of infrastructure, not just the business owners, not just the community leaders, but I want to see the little guy is listened to as well.
Thank you very much, Anthony Hamilton-Smith.
Sure, I'm going to agree with Ron Nelson actually, and agree with him that we need to take out all the barriers to building footpaths. I've been campaigning around that part of Geelong in the last few weeks and putting flyers in people's letterboxes and things, and it's pretty obvious that it's quite dangerous and hard to get around on foot. One of our key platforms as Greens is to create sort of transport ways through the suburbs on foot or by bicycle or via other sustainable means that get us around Geelong. And we need to sort that out. So there's my answer.
Thank you. Michael Stengel.
Again, I think it's a fantastic question. I suppose it gets back to the processes that council uses to prioritise things. I live in Grovedale and Reserve Road, and I know a footpath just ends right at the end of my house, and taking the dog for a walk when it's wet is often something that's not too pleasant. I agree that we need to have better ways for people who are wanting to get around on foot, especially with the future, how it's sort of shaping up. My father is 83, so he's in the process of changing over from driving to using a mobility scooter. And I often think that how is he going to get to A to B without the right footpath? So I think it's a great question. And again, I think it gets back to how we go about prioritising things. I agree with Ron. If you know there's a way to abolish the current system so that we can focus on those things for people, then that's how we should go.
Thank you. Andrew Alexander.
This is a fantastic conversation. This is what it's all about. Lots of different ideas, people being listened to, and solutions being found to real problems that people face in their daily life. And if council operated a bit more like this in a cooperative way, I think we'd get a lot more done. I've got a background in disability as well. I'm helping to build a lot of disability homes for the disabled, and accessibility is a key issue for those people. And many of us may take being able to walk, get in a car, go places without much effort for granted. But for many who are frail, old, disabled, may have an injury that they've sustained through a work accident or a road trauma, those things are critical for their quality of life. And the sooner we can make more of our city accessible, echoing the comments of Jack and others, the better it will be for all of us, because those people are also our friends, those people are our parents, those people are our grandparents, they may be us, the listeners. And it's important that we have front of mind, making sure that those what may appear simple things are done well. And I think the detail around how we get it done may involve the changes to how the city generates the funding for that sort of thing. But it might also involve putting a levy on the actual homeowner that can potentially be recouped when the property is sold. So there's all sorts of different things you can work out. But I think our values and what we think are important should guide what we do and how we do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Atamjid.
Yeah, Mitchell, it's a great question. It's like a crux of, the campaign which I've done from, last couple of months. And it's raising the exact same issues which I'm fighting from last, since this campaign has started. During my visits to the sports club and, the community, centers and meet Dale Marshall and, and Vaughan Ponds, especially from last 3 years, these suburbs were not being heard at all. None of the councillors paid the significant visit to any sort of sports facility or the parks there. And the fact of the matter is, these our voters around these suburbs, they needs to be heard. And as I said in my opening statement as well, that that their roads needs to be improved. There are no footpath at all, and especially road infrastructure around Reserve Road, Horseshoe Bend Road, Brevels Road, and footpaths around Gazipur Road, Reserve Road, and if you go more deeper into Marshall, either there are no footpaths, or if they are very, very bad conditions. So as I mentioned before, my priority will always be working on those issues which are real, which community is facing on their day-to-day life, and especially footpaths is one of a significant part of especially our elderly who use walkers and other disability equipments. And definitely, if I'll be elected, I'll be campaigning hard, and I'll be advocating hard for the better infrastructure around Kardinia, especially this part of Kardinia. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat Manane.
Thank you. I've actually lived in Grovedale for 20 years of my life during the 80s and 90s. And so I know the area well. And to be quite frank, politicians, including Andy, as he mentioned before, I've had 20 years to do something about this and nothing's been done. And this is one of the issues that I've taken up as a candidate. I run a thing called Active Geelong, which is about improving physical activity around our area, and been very interested in our recreational shared trails program. And part of that is footpath and links between green spaces in our areas. And one of the areas that we've been working on is this Coolabah Drive section. And as Ron mentioned before, Coolabah Drive has been pushed up the list to have footpaths put in 2021, because it is an important link down to the Vaughan Ponds area. So it's a very good question. It's a very good point. We really do need to increase our connectivity, especially for those who are a bit less fortunate ourselves, whether it be disability or the like. But there is a lot of work to be done in this area. It will take a significant amount of money, and there has to be a real focus on investing in these sorts of projects. And it's one of my passions, the Shared Trails Footpaths program, and something I'll continue to push pretty hard on over the next 4 years.
Thank you very much, Pat. Unfortunately, we're not questions. I'm really sorry to all the people that have put in questions. And I see a few people have been asking them in the Facebook Live as well, but we've already gone to 1 o'clock and we were supposed to have wrapped up by now, so we're going to go overtime. But if we were to take all the questions, we'd probably have to cancel the Windermere Forum and keep going all afternoon. So sorry about that, but that's what happens when you try and give all the candidates their say and an equal opportunity. So we'll move to the closing statements. This is the candidate's opportunity to speak for up to 2 minutes to rebut anything that's come up so far, or to talk about an issue that perhaps we haven't got to in the questions yet. And listed first is Bruce Harwood.
Thank you, Mitchell. I don't have a lot more to add. I guess I stand on my my council performance thus far. I'll continue to listen to the community and act where I can, and be an advocate and be a strong voice, and continue my connection to the Kardinia ward and to Geelong as a whole. I know we're having a Kardinia ward candidate forum, but we have to also be thinking about the whole region. And at this particular point in time, with the issue of COVID-19 that has been now forced upon us, it's a whole new view we have to take in how we address the issues with our community, in particular the financial issues, in particular the mental health of our community. Our health and well-being, we know, is suffering, and there is a lot of work to be done in that space. And I think it's important that we don't lose sight of the things that make Geelong the reason that we love to be here. We have our bush, our beaches, and our bay, and that's what makes Geelong unique. We don't want to be a part of Melbourne as such. We want to keep our own character and integrity of Geelong. And to do that, it takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of commitment to be involved in difficult discussions. We don't get everything right all the time. We know that whether you're a councillor or not, in business or in general life, we try and do our best, and we maintain our integrity in doing that. So I'll give my commitment to retain my integrity and to work hard for the people of Kardinia ward and Geelong. And that is my commitment I give today. Thank you.
Thank
you. Hear me?
Yes.
Hi, thanks so much for the closing statement. I think that the footpath issue raises a real lack of council listening. And I think that we all really need to work together, no bullying and all that sort of rubbish, but I think we need to start to think about bringing massive structural change. I think the council needs to lead that. And I know that sustainable initiatives and things like that will bring us out of the dark ages to stop using toxic fossil fuels. We need to start thinking about, overdeveloping the Kardinia ward. The last election was a bit of a popularity contest, and I thought it was utter garbage. And I think that democracy really needs to prevail right now, especially given COVID and lockdown. I think that the petition, the way that we petition council stuck in the 80s, it's not a democratic process. You have to snail mail in your concerns. I think that Geelong needs rapid solutions and it needs to start listening so that we can recover economically. I think we need leaders with the intestinal fortitude and backbone to get things done. I think we've done a good job so far, but we need much more, and we need people to push for our agenda. I think we need to push for a citizens' assembly so we can hear the voice of the people. I think we need to demand targets and accountability on the decisions that affect us, and especially our most vulnerable. I think I want to see a revitalised Geelong, especially with sustainable household energy solutions, creating jobs. I want to see us as world leaders, and I want to do something about a system that just relies on us consuming beyond our means in a throwaway culture. I really want to see a better future for Geelong, and frankly, I'm here to bring it. So check out putclimatefirst.org, and I hope you can throw a vote my way. Thanks for listening.
Thank you very much, Atamjit.
Thanks, Michael. I believe this is the high time to give an opportunity to the new faces in the council. I think the new faces will work with more enthusiasm and bring new ideas and a dynamic approach in the working of the council. I strongly believe that we need effective and visionary planning in the local government level to make Geelong most livable city. My vision is to improve the facility and the infrastructure which our community use in the daily basis. And this sitting council, from last year, they demonstrated that they're not reflecting the views of the community. We can, keep the decision for.
Well, I think your internet connection, still with us.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, sorry, you're a bit scratchy, but just keep going.
That's fine. Yeah, my vision is to improve the infrastructure around Kardinia. So if elected, my priorities will be better roads, footpaths, improved and advanced sports facilities, upgrade and safe parks and recreation areas, effective post-COVID revival plans, sustainable development. I support new libraries in the growth. I work really closely with the community and will ensure that every voice is heard when it comes to the planning and infrastructure. I will strongly advocate for the equal access to the social and economic resources between the different communities. I will work for the social cohesion between the community. Once again, I request all the voters around Kardinia to give a fair go to the new faces. And I have a vision for a Geelong as a most livable city. And in that, I'd like to thank my Mitchell for your great support and for the and keep the good work going on. Vote 1 Atamjit.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Michael?
Hey guys, I appreciate the opportunity to have a final statement. Yeah, for me, what I'd like to do is have a competition where everybody throws their notes away and speaks frankly to the people that they want to represent. It's really important that we are seen to be humans, so people get involved with council, that we are available to be spoken to in a real way, not a way where people think that, you know, we have alternate, you know, things to do or we have agendas. It's important that we're humans. So please throw your notes away, speak as a human being, let people vote for the person that you are, be passionate about what you believe in, but don't just read from a piece of paper. You know, I put an acronym together called TEAMS. And it's the reason I did that is because the things that I believe in, and that is, you know, obviously tourism is a great thing. And again, Kardinia Ward's a little bit of a backward step with that because we're a gateway to some really beautiful places. But entertainment is so important. I want to bring things like, you know, South Barwon Civic Centre back to life so that we can have things happening there. You know, art is so important, and that includes what we do in the libraries, all that kind of stuff. You know, mental health is so important to me. You know, I'm a cancer survivor in remission, and I've just learned so much. When you get close to thinking that your life's going to end, all of this reading notes and trying to be something that you aren't is so unimportant. Be who you are. Let people vote for the person that you are and represent them. And lastly, small business is a really, really important part of what I do. I've always been in small business. My family was, you know, my father was a fisherman, then he was a junkyard owner. Then I've been in small business myself since 1993.
Michael, sorry, that's your 2 minutes. Sorry to cut you off
Thank you.
there. Andy Richards.
Thanks, Mitchell. And look, I'd like to thank the current councillors for their service, but it's time to move on. If you think that council's done a good job in the last 3 years, just vote the incumbents back in. But if you want some real action and some delivery down in southern Geelong on key projects, then, you know, put someone in who will actually advocate for you and for your street. Someone who knows where Reserve Road is and actually visits, you know, the soccer fields there. Someone who knows where Hayes Road is and, you know, used to live on it. Someone who was involved in the planning of Armstrong Creek back in, you know, the decade before this one. Somebody who knows where the different pieces of southern Geelong and Kardinia Ward actually exist. And one thing I will say is that I'm very clear that I am not going to vote for outsourcing and privatising and contracting out essential council services. I want those services to stay in council's hands, so the level of service and the level of delivery for residents and ratepayers in Geelong maintains a high standard and, if anything, improves. I do want to get projects rolling. There's been a lot of talk on this council and most of it's about the CBD, not about southern Geelong. It's time to bring the focus back to the suburbs. I'm going to oppose an increase in essential in the costs of essential council services, which means basically that I'll be looking to cap the fees for things like dog registration, recreation services at pools and gyms and the like at their current rate, so that ratepayers and residents are not paying any more than they are now, because in a post-COVID world where the economy is going to be struggling for the next couple of years, they can't afford to do that. If you want to vote for real change and delivery and action, vote Andy Richards. Thanks.
Thanks, Andy. Jack Williams.
Well, I believe I have the motivation and the enthusiasm and the logical balance to pave Geelong's progression, while also future-proofing our city for many decades to come. And I am only 22. That's another fact I'm going to push here. So I'm looking at Geelong's future in maybe 80 years. I could be here till 100, who knows? Whereas some people in council, some people running, you know, maybe looking 10 years, 20 years, maybe 30 years into the future. There's a whole 80 years, there's a lifetime ahead of me that I'm looking for our city. I promise to support bridging of gaps within our city to divide us as a society. I feel strongly about encouraging inclusiveness for all our members of our community, regardless of whether they're disability, regardless of their age, regardless of race, gender, sexuality, or socioeconomic standing. I know we can all achieve a more interactive and collaborative future together in an innovative city. And by taking action now, we can all look forward our city's progression and a future we can count on.
Thank you very much. Pat Manane.
Thank you, Mitchell. Look, I guess all I can say is that I'll continue to try and make that balanced and informed decision-making on all issues that come. As someone who's lived in the ward for 40 years, I've lived in Grovedale, I've lived in Highton, I've lived in Wandana Heights. So I know the area very well. I understand the projects. I've actually voted on a lot of things over the past 3 years to support the region. And I guess what I've learned in those 3 years is that we need to keep asking the public what their requirements are and make sure we deliver on them. And I think that's what we've been doing. In this post-COVID era, it'll need to strike that balance between what are the investments we need to make as a council to keep improving the environment. Secondly, what do we do? What do we need to invest into make sure that social inequities are met? Because I think we're going to have some challenges in some of those areas. So that balance is going to be pretty important. And I think if we keep listening to the community as we have done and will continue to do, then we should get that right. Also, I think it's a matter of making councillors accountable ongoingly, not just when we've got elections, but make councillors ongoingly accountable for the full 4 years. And so that some don't stray off into other areas because it's popular or because they have an alliance with somebody else, because it's an issue, political issue. So I'd say to the public, keep talking to us, keep us accountable, and make sure that we deliver on our promises.
Thank you very much, Andrew Alexander.
Thank you, Mitchell, and thanks for the opportunity and for the listeners' time to listen to all of us and to consider which people you think can best represent you on council. Look, in a post-COVID period, I think job opportunities are going to be really key, and the city's got a really important role to play in that regard. We know that the federal and state governments are going to be throwing around lots of money for infrastructure and all sorts of other programs, including mental health, including the building of roads and other infrastructure. And we've got a real opportunity to think big. We can really redesign our city for the better. And if that means big projects, then that's what I'm about. And if that means more employment, that's what I'm about. And if that means we get our fair share or even more than our fair share, then that's what I think we should be doing. Now, are there people that are capable of that sort of advocacy? Not too sure. If we did have that level of advocacy available to through the people that we've got on council, then where are all those projects that we should be getting built? There's no action in that regard, and I think more needs to be done. Because if we can get some jobs and infrastructure happening in Geelong, well, Geelong's already a brilliant place. Lots of people from Melbourne want to live here. That's why we've got an infrastructure problem. But what we've also got is a problem of a lack of advocacy for funding to get those things that we need here. There's lots of money being thrown around, and even more money will be thrown around, but we've got to get people who know how to make an argument, who know how to position the city in a way that this funding flows to us so that all of us get to benefit. The thing that I think particularly lacks in the council is a real understanding of business. And if we can help business flourish, jobs happen and prosperity happens, and we just have a better life. Vote 1, Andrew Alexander.
Thank you very much. Ron Nelson.
I just wanted to thank everyone for participating in this forum today. It's there are some things that we really all agree upon, which is good to see. So over the last 3 years, I've kept my commitments to my community. I've always stood with my community when it comes to planning issues and poor planning issues from the state government, whether it's building facilities that shouldn't be where they are, when council wants to put a facility where it shouldn't be as well. I'll always stand with my community. I won't always go with what the officers recommend. I go on every decision based on what my community believes, and I stand by that record. Over the last 3 years, we've delivered and budgeted for change rooms for Grovedale Football Netball Club, Barwon Soccer Club, South Barwon Football Netball Club, Belmont Lions Football Netball Club, East Belmont Cricket Club, Geelong Amateur Football Netball Club got lights, or getting lights. Marshall Cricket Club has got a practice facility. We have built and are building playgrounds in Grantham Drive, Sedmar Park, Province Estate, Warn Ponds, and Warn Ponds. We're also upgrading Burvilles Road. I saw a candidate out there the other day on Facebook and was complaining about it. We're actually delivering it. If you look to your left or your right, is depending on which way you're standing, we're upgrading Burvilles Road and making that really safe and upgrading that intersection, which is key for Armstrong Creek. I've also put in budgeted for Queen's Park irrigation, Warm Pond skate park, BMX track. We're extending the pool hours to keep people fit as we possibly can, because a fit and healthy Geelong is great for Geelong. And all these.
Ron, that's your 2 minutes. Thank you very much. We'll go now to Mark Brugner.
Thanks, Mitchell. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you to my fellow contenders for being in the forum today. It's been very interesting. So if you give me the honour of putting a 1 in my box in the coming election, what does that mean? Well, simply it means putting Kardinia Ward first. It's a strong and independent voice. I vote for transparency, communication, listening to what you want as the people and the residents and the traders of Kardinia Ward. But also we need to look at the big ticket items as well. As Councillor Harwood alluded to before, we do have responsibility for the CBD, and that still needs to be part of our thinking. I, for one, will be standing up for Geelong without fear or favour, whether it be at the state or the federal level, to make sure that we get our fair share of what we need here in Geelong. I'll also be looking at the key council responsibilities of roads, rates and rubbish, having a look at how our rates are spent and whether everyone gets a fair share. Also like to have a look at the planning process as well, to see if we can streamline that a little bit more to make that a little bit more fairer for everyone. I'd like to support all sports and recreation clubs in the region to make sure that they get what they deserve and not just what may be coming to them because they may have an affiliation or some sort of representation from council as being supporters or so on. I have personal political views, but I guarantee you that my first priority is to the people of Kardinia. I'm not concerned with what party or what councillor comes up with whatever idea. If it's good for Geelong, then it's good for me. And I think that that's the attitude that we need to take into the future. We've got a lot of opportunity in front of us, and I think we should thank the current council for what they've done, but the time is right now for us to be able to put our heads down. Let's get some fresh ideas and some fresh faces on the council and move this city forward into the 21st century to make us the envy of the entire country and make people want to come to Geelong even more than they already do.
2 minutes, and last but not least for this forum, Anthony Hamilton-Smith.
Thanks so much, Mitchell. If you care about Geelong's future, please consider carefully who your vote preferences go towards. As you've just witnessed, we're very lucky enough to in Kardinia Ward to have quite a few outstanding candidates vying for position on council during this election. If you care for a greener, cleaner Geelong, you already know who to vote for. If you care about a stronger community voice to council, you also already know who to vote for. If you care about a more vibrant and active city with increased local employment, better infrastructure and services, you already know who to vote for. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that's a wrap from our forum today. We really appreciate all of the candidates who've given up their time to be here to answer your questions. Jack Williams, Andy Richards, Pat Manane, Tamjit Singh, Belinda Maloney, Anthony Hamilton Smith, Bruce Harwood, Andrew Alexander, Mark Brunger, and Michael Stangel. And I'd also like to thank all the staff and volunteers of 94.7 The Pulse. I'm here in the spotlight, you see me, but there's a lot of people behind the scenes, the staff and the wonderful volunteers who do a lot of work to make sure that these forums happen. So we really thank all of them. Don't go anywhere if you're listening or following us on Facebook Live, because coming up in now about 9 minutes time is our Windermere Candidates Forum. But until then, we'll have some great music on the station. Thank you very much, everyone, and we wish you well with the rest of your campaigns.